Testing the volume. Great. Right. Okay. Over the weekend, massive protests have erupted in Washington, D.C. If you guys have not heard about it, you're going to hear about it now, where thousands and thousands of people came to Washington, D.C. to protest. Now, there were two protests that were happening at the same time. And I do think it's important to mention that there were the anti-Trump protests, which is called Hands Off. And then there were also the Palestinian protests as well. So I want to make that very clear to people who may not realize that there are two separate protests that were happening all across the country over the weekend. And I really do wish I could have been there. I've actually been filming over the weekend. I told you guys that I'm starting a documentary. So my producer, Eric, and we started filming over the weekend. So we've been pretty busy with that. But we want to get into this, guys, because again, we're seeing a new administration, but we're seeing that some of the same problems still exist, right? And what does that say about the two-party system? When it comes to the pro-Palestinian protests, you'll see here, again, thousands and thousands of people protesting in D.C. under Donald Trump, just like they were under Joe Biden. Here's a clip here from the People's Forum.
Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
How does everyone feel?
Woo!
We came out in tens of thousands to send a message to the fascist Trump regime and Bibi's fascist Zionist regime. But nothing they send towards us, nothing they can do to us will ever make us cower. And today we sent that message when we marched from Congress to ICE and the American Gestapo, who have taken our comrades in the middle of the night, in the middle of the day, in an attempt to strike fear in our hearts. We sent the message. We sent the message. Now what we fear most is letting our martyrs down.
You can see there's the Washington Monument right there. They have signs that say Free Mahmoud and Ramisa. There's also pictures. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there were pictures of some of the journalists that have been killed in Gaza as well. So again, like a lot of things that are being represented here, obviously, to stop the genocide in Gaza, but then also calling out the journalists that were killed and also calling out the Palestinian protesters, the pro-Palestinian protesters who have basically just been abducted in the middle of the night.
It's what we fear the most. And as long as there are prisoners behind bars, as long as our martyrs fall, as long as a single bullet is shipped to the fascist regime known as Israel, we will continue to fight. We can read.
You can see all different groups, Asians for Palestine over here banner. Also, there was Jewish Voices for Peace that we just passed in the video as well. It's really interesting when you hear them say that young people don't organize, because that's obviously not true. If you can tell from these protests, ladies and gentlemen, This is also kind of a slap in the face to the Vote Blue, no matter who crowd on social media that continue to say that people were not protesting for Gaza under Donald Trump's administration. While this is the largest one that I've seen thus far, there have been several protests under Donald Trump for Gaza, and they were choosing to ignore that. So you have to ask questions about that. But what we are seeing happening here, folks, I call it a big shift, right? Because again, people are still holding the line for Gaza, regardless of who the administration is. We also see Ronnie Yakalik was there with Breakthrough News. I think in this video, she's interviewing someone from People's Forum. Check this one out.
Joined by Leanne Flahan. She is the education director at the People's Forum. Leanne, what brings you to D.C. today?
Well, I'm here because we have to stand with the Palestinian people. That's the simplest answer I can give you. This morning, we learned that 90% of Gaza doesn't have access to drinking water. I mean, this is just... there's no words to describe how outrageous this is. Trump was claiming, and he tried to get elected on a platform of a ceasefire deal and end to U.S. wars. He's a complete liar. We all knew that, but now the whole world knows that. He is actually...
That part right there is really important because some people did believe that he was going to end the wars, right? And then there's a number of people who have come out against Donald Trump, excuse me, as of recent. One of the videos you guys will see on Monday as well. You'll see it later. There's a video of Ben Shapiro turning on Donald Trump, not related to this issue, but other issue. There's videos of Dave Smith now turning on Donald Trump. Like there's a number of people who voted for Donald Trump and endorsed him and thought that maybe he would be the person to end these wars that are now publicly speaking out against him, Joe Rogan included, which is what I did try to warn people about. When it comes to this two-party system, both of these parties are pro-war. And that is why some of us chose to vote like third party. Some of us voted for Jill Stein or Claudia De La Cruz or Cornel West. There's a reason behind that, because we knew that both of them would support what was happening in Gaza. The genocide started under the Biden administration, but it continues under the Trump administration, which is what I was trying to explain to people would happen. So I hope that this really wakes people up and make them see that if your issue is anti-war, you will now see, if you didn't believe it before, that both parties support the war machine.
Actually just trying to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from their land, and he's trying to intimidate anybody who speaks out against it and seeing if we'll go home. Well, we're not going home, so this is why we organized the march. We pulled it together really quickly, and we're all out here today from across the country.
And Leanne, to those who say we've been protesting for a year and a half and this is still going on, why even come out anymore? What do you have to say to that attitude?
I have two things to say. One, it's not the protesting that is the problem. It is this fake democracy that is the problem. What has being shown now is that the vast majority of people in this country don't want to see the genocide continue in Palestine. They want an immediate end to it. They want a ceasefire. They want people to have food. They want people to have water. They want people on their land. This is clear. You can see it in the polls. You can see it in the public opinion. You can see it in the streets. But inside the White House, we're here in the capital of the United States. They don't actually make policy based on the majority opinion of this country. They don't make policy in the interest of their own constituency. They make policy based on the interest of the billionaires who are making money off of war and genocide and off the death of tens of thousands of Palestinian children. So that's really the thing that's dysfunctional here. It's the fact that we don't live in a real democracy. We live in a false democracy. If we lived in a democracy, this war would have been over before it even started. This war would not even have happened. Secondly, protesting is our right. No one is going to take that right away from us. And what does staying home actually do? There's a plethora of different things that we can do. We're organizing, we're doing many different things for Palestine, but it is important that we keep coming out on the streets. And we'll continue going out on the streets. We're going to keep mobilizing and keep protesting until Palestine is free. I don't know if that's going to be in months or years, but we're going to continue filling the streets with the Palestinian flag and lifting the demands for a free Palestine high, and it's bringing more and more people into the struggle. Don't think that protests aren't effective. Every time there's a protest, new people join the cause. And
every time.
That is really what's going to push us forward.
And as an organizer myself, I can echo that sentiment that she made there. It's true. Every time there's a protest, more people join the cause. So what she said there was just spot on. Again, I have a lot of a lot of joy surrounds me when I think about the young people of today. And I want to remind people that when you look back at protest in history, people were protesting during the civil rights movement for years. And all of a sudden, I think, sometimes people forget that. A lot of times people just jump straight forward to the I Have a Dream speech and they forget like all of the events, all the protests, all the boycotts that led up to that moment and even after. So people protest for years during the civil rights movement. So just keep that in mind. I also want to point out Hassan Piker was also apparently there. Ronnie Akalik was able to get a quick talk with him as well. Check this one out.
We've got Hassan Piker here all the way in DC at the Free Palestine rally. Hassan, what brings you here?
I'm about to speak at the march right now. I did not really prepare any words for it, but I feel like all the words that could have been said about the ongoing genocide have already been said a million times over. So I'm just here to show solidarity and hopefully bring some people here as well so that we can demonstrate with large numbers and become undeniable.
Hassan, you have a huge base of people that watch you, that listen to what you say. People are feeling really scared right now. They're feeling tired right now. What's your response to that attitude?
It's something that I think about quite a bit. Honestly, the reason why they're really clamping down on any sort of speech that says the truth about what Israel is doing, that speaks to the atrocities, the inhumanity, the cruel treatment, the genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. The real reasons as to why they're becoming more aggressive in their policing of speech and undermining constitutional protections is because they're scared, is because a lot of people recognize that there is a real fissure between what the public's demands are, what they see, what they recognize, and what the politicians and the lobbyists here in DC are advocating for on the issue of Israel.
Yeah, this is a really good point, and I want to call something out here. Hassan Piker and Ronnie Akalik, these are two people who stream. Ronnie is a journalist. She's out there in the field, covers a lot of geopolitical issues. But these are two individuals that participated in protests under Biden and participated in protests under Donald Trump. And so when I say there's a big shift, Donald Trump has inherited Joe Biden's genocide. And it was up to him whether or not he wanted to truly bring about some type of peace for the Palestinian people, or if he was going to cower to Israel. And I pointed out earlier on, taking that money from Marion Madelson, taking AIPAC lobby money, that told you what he was going to do. Forget about what he said he was going to do. That told you right then and there what he was going to do. So this pushes back on the narrative that people who protested under Biden are not protesting under Trump about this same issue. This pushes back on that narrative. Just something important that I wanted to call out there.
And that's precisely the reason why they want to clamp down as hard as they can. But I think instead of feeling insecure in this moment, we should feel emboldened. And those of us who have the privilege of having an American citizenship, those of us who are Jewish, especially, should be going out and basically putting their bodies in front of this movement to make sure that no matter what happens, we will not be silenced.
And one last thing, these guys like Trump and Musk and this sort of like MAGA attitude of like alpha superiority and strength, they're actually quite insecure small people. I feel like you're a good counter to that. What do you have to say to the people who think that like this is the strong alpha cool way to go, is like the Trumps and the Musks of the world?
So something I noticed about this as well, either Hassan Piker is very tall, or maybe Ronnie is very short. I'm willing to go with the former. I think Hassan Piker must be very tall. I just noticed that about the angle.
I think a strong man protects those who can't protect themselves. It's a weak man that seeks out more vulnerable people to harm them, to elevate their status. And I think it's very scary. It's very disturbing that there is momentum amongst the youth here in the United States of America, especially, where they feel like it's a beacon of masculinity to attack those who can't defend themselves. I think that's what a weak man does. We got to bring strong men back.
Now, Hassan Piker, from what I understand, I don't think he voted third party. I don't think he really supports third parties. Hopefully one day that would change. A voice like his would have been really powerful to provide the reason as to why people should have voted third party, particularly in 2024 over this issue alone. There's a scroll that came out as well that I thought was really interesting. If this doesn't do anything to your heartstrings, I don't know what to tell you folks. This is a scroll at the protest of all the Palestinians that have been killed in Gaza. These are their names.
Of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. I remember the image.
And that's tiny print. Just look at how
by an American bomb.
This goes on and on and on.
And the only thing that stayed was this trust vessel and his body.
And this is why I've been saying, and many of us said a long time, it's not just 50,000 people. They're making light of that number. I believe it's been over 500,000 people that have been killed. And this is something that I do not get. For all the people who were pro-free speech, for all the people who were, I guess, praising the January 6th protesters and said that they had the right to do what they wanted to do or whatever. They had the right to voice their opinion. Now, some of those same people are coming out and they're saying deport the people who are protesting for Gaza. And that's this one right here, Juanita Broderick, this account on X. She was one of the people that was screaming about free speech, said we got to have free speech. One of the people that constantly defended the January 6th protesters there. Now she is saying that the people who are protesting, these MFers do not belong here in America, deport them all. Why? Because they're protesting something you don't agree with? So do you see when I say this is the big shift? There is a special guest that's going to be coming on to the show this week. They've never been on the show this before. This is going to be a surprise. And this is one of the things that I'm going to ask them about when we talk about building coalitions. Because if we're building a coalition around censorship, around free speech, or around anti-war movement, it seems like to me, and what I have noticed is that people seem to be on board with it when it was under the Biden administration. But the moment that Trump got into office, some of those same people were like defending what Trump is doing with the protesters. I'm heavily against that. And I've said this over and over and over again. I support free speech, and I mean free speech. Doesn't mean if I agree with it or not. I support the protests. These are peaceful protests. But Juanita here is saying that these people should be deported. First of all, a lot of the people that are out there are Americans. So you want them to deport American citizens? Like, this is just completely bizarre. But under Biden administration, you see what I'm saying? Under Biden administration, she was so like, oh, yes, she's defending the January 6th protesters and everything. So there was no call to deport. This is why I push back on this. Like, if you're pro-free speech, you're pro-free speech. If you're pro-peaceful protest, you're pro-peaceful protest. It should not matter if you agree with the issue or not. So everybody pay attention to the people who are doing these things. Now, again, I said there were two protests that were in DC. The other protest that was all across the country as well was the anti-Trump protest, which was called Hands Off. Now, I want to show you this. We're going to get into the clip of these protests and something bizarre about this that I noticed when I looked at their demands. Check this out.
We begin tonight with the mass protests from coast to coast. Americans taking to the streets, voicing their frustrations with the policies of the Trump administration and Elon Musk, the world's richest man. All of this with the latest round of tariffs taking effect today, 10% on most goods coming into the U.S. Thousands gathering on the National Mall for the so-called hands-off protests organized by Democratic activists. Crowds also growing in Charlotte, North Carolina, New York, Chicago, and San Francisco. Many protesting the mass firings of federal workers and immigration policies. President Trump urging Americans to hang tough in a social media post earlier today, calling this an economic revolution that is already bringing jobs and businesses.
But Donald Trump is lying there. So here's the thing. This is the big shift that I was referring to. That's what we're seeing that's happening right now. Again, we saw protests under Biden. We're seeing massive protests under Donald Trump as well. And that just points to the issue that I have with the two-party system. How different are these two parties when you have people having massive protests under both, right? The Gaza issue is the same under both. Right. They both support Israel. Both of these parties are pro-war. It's the same. Now, this particular protest, people were protesting against Donald Trump's agenda. And I want to show you something about that, because when I noticed what they were protesting against when they listed the items, I noticed there were some things that obviously should have been on there that are a part of Donald Trump's agenda that were not on there. And that makes you ask questions about this hands-off protest. Who organized this? What was the real meaning behind it? If you're only going to call out some of the problems with Trump's agenda, but you're purposefully omitting others.
This tariff rollout has sent markets plunging and fueled fears of a possible recession. We have team coverage tonight. ABC's Jay O'Brien leads us off from Washington.
Tonight, hours into the start of President Trump's 10% tariffs covering most goods entering the U.S. Demonstrations erupting across the country, from Boston to Charlotte to Texas to California, protesting Trump and billionaire Elon Musk.
Notice that some of those are red areas, right? So they mentioned Texas. There were protests in North Carolina. Like, this is what I've been trying to tell people. The economy is key for a lot of people, and people are not happy with the economy. And I'll tell you guys something a little privately. There are people who have reached out to me privately that are not happy with this at all, that did not vote, and that they didn't vote. They stayed at home. There are also people who probably do not want to go on record for this, but there are also people who did vote for Donald Trump that I have heard publicly are heavily against what Donald Trump is doing right now. So again, you mess with people's pockets, you mess with people's jobs, you try to come after Social Security, people are going to take issue with that. Donald Trump's economic agenda is not benefiting working class people in this country right now. I'm seeing people have the same anger towards him that they did against Joe Biden when Biden was president over the economy as well. So once again, we're seeing different ways that they handle the economy, but both presidents thus far have pissed off the American working class. And I would say especially working poor. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? You're trying to run the country into the ground, and you're trying to do it at the expense of the workers.
ABC's Christian Cordero in Washington, D.C.
Hands off are the two words that's bringing everyone out here. And that's serving as a springboard for any of the many issues they care about. Throughout the day today, we have seen signs that say, hands off our schools, hands off our bodies, hands off our Social Security. It seems everyone out here has a message about what they consider government overreach.
And tonight, as President Trump's first round of reciprocal tariffs officially snap into place, with steeper tariffs just days away from more than 50 countries. Musk appearing to take aim on social media at White House economic advisor Peter Navarro, the architect of Trump's tariff policies. Navarro downplaying the stock market sell-off Thursday and Friday, the worst 2 days on Wall Street since the pandemic.
We're in a situation where we're simply rebalancing and restructuring. I can guarantee you that the market will find its bottom, that we will have the Dow hit 50,000 easily during the Trump second term.
Most economists warning U.S. consumers should brace for higher prices. And
Yes. And this was one of the complaints under the Biden administration, right? So that's what some of the people are out there protesting for with the hands-off protest, the higher prices. Now, I want to bring this up, though, because I did notice something. When I looked at the demands of this protest, it's a little suspicious. If you look at this again, whoever organized this protest, I said they want to keep NATO. Does anyone else notice Gaza is not on this list? When you look at their demands, it says Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, our jobs, our wallets, our bodies, fair elections, personal data, public lands, veteran services, cancer research, NATO, hands off NATO, consumer protections, clean air, clean energy, schools, libraries, free speech, LGBTQ plus rights, immigrants, courts, and more. You know what you don't see here? I just want to point this out, people. This is what I was trying to tell you. We are not included. Look at this. Notice you don't see anything here about Black people. Nothing. And before people say, well, they didn't mention other groups. Yes, they did. You see what I'm saying? Does everybody see what is happening here? Notice if you are protesting against Donald Trump's agenda, part of that agenda includes Gaza, because he wants to ethnically cleanse the Palestinian people in Gaza. He's in on that agenda with Bibi. Why would that not be there? Why do you not have hands off Gaza? Who put this together? There's nothing there about Black people either. Does everybody see this? Everybody see it? Nothing about that. Nothing. As much as people were complaining about DEI, notice they don't have anything on here about diversity. Are we part of the more part? The and more? You see how we're not important? You see how they don't even care? But so we're talking about domestic and foreign policy. Domestic, other groups are on here. Black people are not on here. We're greatly losing our wealth. I've talked about this over and over and over again. You know what else is not on here again? Gaza, not on here. All a part of Trump's agenda. So why is it that when you're saying we're going to protest against Donald Trump's agenda, why did you leave two key elements off? So that makes me wonder, who is funding this? It makes me wonder who organized that. And then something else I noticed too. Nancy Pelosi was one of the speakers. She was at the Hands Off rally in Pennsylvania. So you got Nancy Pelosi there, right? So you see this? Okay. So I believe that's why Gaza's not on there. I believe that's why Black wealth, Black jobs, we're talking about jobs. A lot of those people that have federal jobs are Black. That's why we're not on there. So it seems like to me, this is something that was probably organized by the Democratic Party, and it's not really addressing all of the core concerns. So that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Again, I agree with the protesting against Trump's agenda. 100% agree with that. Just like I agreed with people protesting under Biden and Biden's plans the things that he was trying to implement at that point in time or take away from people at that point in time. I agree with all that. But I find it very strange that out of all the things from Trump's agenda, you don't have Gaza on there and you don't have diversity on there, which you supposedly were so angry about. Nevertheless, both of these protests show you that there has been a big shift. The people are still angry. No, people did not go back to sleep after Trump. People have protested under him, massive protests, and massive protests under Biden, which both show you that both of these parties are an issue.